Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for another vinyl update. This time I'm just going to stick with one band, one of my favorite bands of all time, a hometown band for me. It's Sacred Reich. So I'm sure a lot of you saw that they were re-releasing the first two full lengths and the Surf Nicaragua EP. They dropped, I guess, about a month ago. I've given them quite a few spins. Mine took a little longer to get here. I decided to order the ones that were limited to 100 that were only available through Kings Road in Europe. So they took a few extra weeks to get here. But being that they are one of my favorite bands, I decided to go for the more exclusive. For no reason other than I'm a snob when it comes to vinyl. Anyway, they did a great job on these. Yes, I can't remember if the American Way got a reissue a few years ago, but Surf Nicaragua and Ignorance did. I got the Ignorance from a few years ago over here. They released it with the original album cover that they wanted. Actually, I think it's on the insert. Yeah. So they release it with this album cover, which I thought was cool. I'm not actually a fan of this album cover. I do prefer the original. It was just kind of perfect for the time, if you're familiar with this period in the late 80s. But so we got Ignorance, and this one is on clear black spot and white. Oh man, clear black spot with white and red splattered vinyl. And it does look actually really cool. So let's pull that out. Again, sounds amazing. They did a great job on these. Really happy about it. Probably one of my top three all-time EPs. This was the album or the EP that got me into Sacred Reich. I want to say I heard Surf Nicaragua on Headbangers Ball shortly after it came out, or right around that time. Man, I've played this so many times. I've talked about it before. So my bands, we warmed up with two songs. We wanted really fast-paced songs to just kind of get us warmed up, and we would warm up with Cotton Amash from Anthrax and Surf Nicaragua from Sacred Reich. And it's just always been a favorite of mine. This one, I don't remember. I think it's blue with green splatter is what they call it, but I can't. Maybe it was orange, green and orange splatter. But here is that one. If you haven't checked out Sacred Reich yet, this EP is probably one of the best starting points. The song Surf Nicaragua is one of the best songs of that period. It's one of my favorite songs of that period. They do one of the best covers of War Pigs that I've ever heard. Actually, I talked about it when I talked about Nativity in Black last year. This cover of War Pigs should have been on Nativity in Black instead of the what band was it? Faith No More, I think it was the Faith No More cover. They just do such a great job on here, and it's just a fantastic EP. Again, one of my I would say my third favorite EP of all time, and I may do a video. There's a couple punk EPs that I absolutely love that would be above this one, but this is definitely right up there. Fantastic. I do have an original copy of this. I believe this one is the first three songs were the original EP, and the last three were from Live at the Dynamo. I can't remember exactly though what the order was, but this is a must-have for any of you guys that are into thrash. If you're into metal, if you're into punk, Sacred Reich is another good choice. I'll get to that in a minute. I got a little bit of a rant, not just related to Sacred Reich, but just related to what I'm seeing in the heavy metal media in general as of late. It's kind of ridiculous. And then last but not least, The American Way. Absolutely love this album. Man, when this came out, I played this nonstop. This did not leave my CD player for the better part of a year. I could not get enough of this album. I felt the same way with Independent. I felt the same way with Heal. Just fantastic album. I'm really glad. This one I didn't have on vinyl at all. I have a CD that I've had probably since maybe 92 or 93, a CD copy of it. But it's really nice to finally have this one on vinyl. I still can't believe that they haven't released Heal. Because I know that was on Nuclear, or I'm sorry, also on Metal Blade. It blows me away. I had to order my copy from Australia and pay a ridiculous amount to get a copy of that album. I'm going to do a video on that later because I have a really crazy story to tell about that album and something that happened to me related to that album in Phoenix back when that came out. Anyway, I would also love to see Independent. I don't know. Was it Hollywood Records that one was released on? So I don't know if that's a rights issue. I would love to see a repress of Independent as well. Another absolutely just phenomenal album. That Sacred Reich hasn't had a bad album. I hear a lot of people complain about Heal because they thought it was more of a groove metal album, which doesn't really make sense to me because if you listen to Sacred Reich as a whole, they've always been a very groove-based thrash band. They've always had a really nice groove to their songs. And they've always been a super dynamic band. It wasn't just straight up fast thrash. It's always been a really dynamic sound. So, like I said, I don't get the criticism of that. It's a fantastic album. I saw them on that tour. It was amazing. Highly recommend all their stuff. But I would love to see Independent get a repress, and I 100% would love to see that was number one on my list of records to buy for years until I finally broke down and paid up to get it shipped from Australia. To have on vinyl, though. One of my all-time favorites. Anyway, getting to so as far as these goes, I highly recommend grabbing them. The ones that they only did 100 of sold out in a matter of days. I'm sure you're going to pay up if you want those, but I mean, there's still copies out there. I'm sure you can go on to Metal Blade right now and order all these. And again, I highly recommend grabbing them. If you don't have these in your collection and you like thrash and you like punk, or groove-based metal, you got to have them. They're all fantastic. Now to get to my rant, I don't do many of these rants. I think I've done 2 or 3 in all the years that I've been doing these videos, but what's going on in heavy metal and just music media right now, this rewriting of history is just kind of getting insane. So it kind of ties to this in a way because when they announced these, I saw some pretty crazy articles and some pretty crazy videos and posts about how Sacred Reich is just a copycat band. People started talking about how Sepultura and Sacred Reich and a couple of the other second wave of thrash bands were just copycats of the big four, which is kind of ridiculous. That's not ultimately what led to this rant, but that's kind of the connection here. So one thing I will say about Sacred Reich, if you're not familiar with them or if you haven't really given them a chance, they were definitely not, and still aren't, they are definitely not a copycat of the big four. Number one, their dynamic has never been just straight up thrash. It's always been groove based, and what really set them apart from other thrash bands is the intelligence of their lyrics. This is really, really intelligent metal. Very, very political. More political than any other metal band I could think of from that period. Don't get me wrong. All the big four bands had political songs, but they didn't have 6 albums that are just straight political. They very much brought in that punk attitude, that punk ideology, that punk. The best comparison for Sacred Reich to me would probably be Dead Kennedys, just off the top of my head. And the cool thing about Sacred Reich is, I don't agree with all of their politics. I didn't even back then when I agreed with it more than I do now. It made you think. There's a lot of stuff they talk about that I don't agree with, but they give a point of view that just gets you thinking. And like I said, the lyrics are insanely intelligent. Additionally, the sound, it was different. Phil has a phenomenal flow, and his flow was different than anybody else's. So and when you get into Sepultura, it's even crazier. But I read an article talking about how these guys, Sacred Reich, Sepultura, are basically just copycats of the Big Four, which it's ridiculous. Anyway, so what really got me thinking about this in general, I don't know if you guys or follow Scott Waters on Facebook. There's been a lot of articles and people talking, writing about how a lot of the heavy metal bands from the 70s and early 80s aren't heavy metal, they're hard rock. Basing that sound on what heavy metal is today or what death metal is today, blah, blah, blah. I saw a crazy article just recently about Black Sabbath being a hard rock band at best. If you grew up during that, even in the 80s, even into the 90s, nobody ever disputed that Judas Priest was heavy metal, or that Black Sabbath was heavy metal, or Riot, or I mean, there were some heavy bands in the. Even Aerosmith was considered heavy metal. Now, I may not consider them heavy metal. I may consider more of a hard blues band, but that's just because my idea of what heavy metal was is from somebody who grew up in the better part of the late 80s and early 90s when I was coming into my own musically. What really set me on this thought path, though, was I just read an article about butt rock and what butt rock is. And I can't remember. It was one of the bigger metal websites. I don't remember which one it was. But it was this long article about butt rock, the definition of what it is, and the biggest butt rock bands. Now, my idea, I think it's a stupid term. I don't think I have ever said the term outside of doing this video, but they gave the definition, which is bands that don't add anything to a sound. They're basically just copycats. They just steal the sound that others have created, and kind of take it for their own and get rich that way, you know. And obviously, some of the bands that they listed were Nickelback and Creed, which, you know, I agree. They didn't add much to the alternative sound. They definitely took a little bit of Alice in Chains, a little bit of Soundgarden, and just kind of rolled with it and became multimillionaires based on that. And you know, it is what it is. I don't have an issue with that. Where the issue came up was the very first band that they listed as butt rock was Motley Crue. And whether you're a fan of Motley Crue or not, there's no way that you can say that Motley Crue just stole a sound that was already popular and got rich off of it. Arguably, they are the first. They released the first glam metal album. Now, there are some predecessors from the 70s, and Nikki Sixx completely credits those, you know. He'll tell you there is no band without Sweet. There is no band without Stars. I think those are the two biggest influences. He was in London, which was another, you know, him and Blackie, when they were kind of creating the sound that would become glam metal. Yeah, they got rich off of it, but they basically founded it. And for a major metal outlet now to say that they added nothing to music. Now, you can say that 80s glam, you could say it's horrible, that you don't like it. But it was the biggest metal trend in the 80s, and it is what turned most of us from that era into metalheads. Whether I listen to it much now, I would not be, I won't say I wouldn't be a metalhead without Motley Crue. Motley Crue was the first band, though, that I really got into that got me listening to heavy music in probably 83. I got turned on through MTV, you know, Shout at the Devil, and I was hooked. I'm a metalhead because of that band. You know, I obviously got into other stuff later, but they are still one of the most important bands in my me becoming a metalhead. And it just cracks me up that these media outlets now are basically rewriting history. You know, whether it's saying that Black Sabbath isn't a metal band, or whether it's saying that Judas Priest, which I've also read articles about, is not a metal band, or that Motley Crue didn't add anything to metal. You know, just for you younger guys that are out there that are subscribed, take this stuff with a grain of salt and go and check this stuff out yourself. You know, and a lot of this has to do with Facebook. I haven't seen him do it with Punk yet, but I'm sure that that's coming too. Actually, I kind of have. You know, I just saw right before the election. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard, where a bunch of punks, well, they called themselves punks in. I don't remember if it was Seattle or Portland, were saying you're not punk rock if you don't vote for Joe Biden. Now, whether you agree with, you like Joe Biden or you like Trump, or whether you don't like either of them, um, Joe Biden is a very big government guy. And that is the antithesis of what punk was. Maybe that's what it is now, and I just don't get it. But that's not what it was. I didn't see Jello Biafra out there stumping for Joe Biden, and I didn't see him even when Barack Obama was in office. He was one of the few punk rock pioneers that was actually calling him out on all the stuff that was going on, whether it was the counter intel programs against Occupy Wall Street, anything else. But just you know, the way the media. You know, and it's media in general. You know, I'm sure a lot of these metal mags are owned by bigger media conglomerates, but the way that the history of metal is kind of being restructured and reorganized, and it's just kind of sad, and it just kind of got me upset the other night. So I thought I'd vent a little bit. Regardless, get the new Sacred Reich albums. They're awesome. Subscribe. See you soon. Take care.